Say what?
I know that my wife can see me over the box. Maybe I'll just hold it. Good afternoon. Thank you for coming. If you notice, we've had a slight change in the program. When Ron was unable to get to my house to take pictures, and if he doesn't take pictures, I'm really helpless. I was going to do a roundtable discussion. As many of you know, I did a sports Steins lecture at the Pittsburgh convention, and so we were just going to have a roundtable on sports Steins. What we decided to do is do a lecture with a PowerPoint presentation. So I'm first going to apologize for the quality of the pictures. I ended up taking all the pictures myself, and I'll point out the poor backgrounds and the blurriness as we go through the presentation. I thank my son, John Charles, for putting together the PowerPoint presentation. With all the pictures, I emailed him 90 some odd pictures. And I also thank my wife for accompanying me again on another Stein convention, even though she's not a direct Stein convention other than by osmosis. What I decided to do is try to make this somewhat interesting for a greater group of people. So I decided to take 5 categories of Steins that I thought people really didn't focus on, didn't really know much about, and didn't really collect or didn't know that people were collecting these types of Steins. Some of these Steins represent me collecting every type that I could for 20 or 30 years. So if it took 20 or 30 years to get a dozen Steins, for an example, these are not the type of Steins that come up frequently. So what I did was I took a category of wooden Steins. And the reason why I took a category of wooden Steins, I had a couple wooden Steins in my collection, but for some reason in a period of 6 months, I bought 3 what I thought were great wooden Steins. So I started looking at them saying, wow, these are really detailed, and why aren't there more wooden Steins around? And, well, do people really drink out of wooden Steins? So I took wooden Steins. Then I took a Metlock Stein. And if in some of the old issues of Prosit, and I never got around to answering it, there were a couple articles on what is this Villeroy and Bach Parian Stein? Is that a Metlock? And so I've been collecting Parian Steins for too long. So I took a category of Metlock for the Metlock collectors. I then took glass because I started really getting into cameo and higher quality glass, so I wanted to focus on cameo glass. Then I took Merkelbach and Wick hand-painted pottery Steins. And you're going to see a bunch of those. And then finally I took Dresden porcelain master Steins. So essentially you've got a wood, a Metlock, a porcelain, a pottery, and glass. A different type of material for each category that hopefully you'll learn a little about. And again, I'm going to repeat it, I greatly thank my son who's busy at work but was sending me drafts of this PowerPoint presentation. Wooden Steins is the first category. This is a Stein that was one of the 3 that I bought in a 6-month period. It's about 1870, and it came from France, but it's really well done, very detailed carved. You'll see the lid. And I just thought it was a good example of a wood Stein. They actually go from better wood Steins to poorer quality wood Steins, but that's just I didn't want my son to spend another 2 days rearranging them.
Are the mounts carried?
Yes. This is a Stein that I bought in Florida. Notice that background. See, I got white in one part but not in the other. This is kind of a black forest Stein with an eagle on top that is pretty detailed carved. That's the second one I bought in a 6-month period. Now this Stein is actually about 18, 19 inches tall. It's really a black forest Stein. And again, you'll see my poor white background over my dining room table with the back of our living room. And that is really a fantastic Stein. Many of you see the pyrography Steins, where somebody literally took like a wood burning tool and burnt into them. And those seem to be somewhat popular. They come up every once in a while. They're not expensive Steins. People have seen the St. Louis silver Steins, and these come in about 5 or 6 different sizes. They're fairly common. They do come up a lot. The Norwegian or Scandinavian Steins are very well done. And if you think, I had to think about this. Well, why you always see the wooden Steins come from Norway and Scandinavia? Well, the reason is that's what they had up there. They had woods. They had forests. So it doesn't surprise me when you think about it why they had so many, as opposed to, say, Germany, where it had the clay and the materials near rivers to allow for pottery and other production. The Daubenkrubs, you've seen these. These are usually, every once in a while, come up in auction. The trick here is to try to differentiate between what's a 1900 piece and what's an 18th century piece. And the 18th century pieces, of course, are worth a lot, so you really have to know the difference. I know that Ron Fox knows the difference. I often look at two, and I'm trying to figure out, do I have the early ones that are worth a lot, or do I have just an late 1800s, early 1900s version? That's just another example with the Imperial Eagle. That's obviously a circa 1900. That's just a hand-painted wooden one with the Imperial Eagle on the exterior, held together with wooden strands. You see these come up a lot, what I call more crude wooden Steins, really made out of a tree, probably just crafts that were sold as souvenirs and things. And you see these come up. Not that well done, but still interesting. This is one of my favorite ones. This one I've had for a number of years. It's actually burl wood, and it has a big dice on the top, so that's fairly well done. So essentially, if you took the Stein book and looked at the Stein book, which has pictures of thousands of Steins, you're only going to see 20, 25 pictures of wooden Steins, and 5 or 6 of them are Daubenkrubs, some of them are the Pyrography Krugs, some of them are Norwegian Krugs. You don't see really that many that, what I call the Black Forest ones, that are really detailed carved. And so that's why I just, in a period of 6 months, I got those first 3 Steins and thought that's really unusual, and I may not see other great ones for a while. The next category is cameo glass Steins, and when I use the word Steins, it's really a misnomer. The cameo glass Stein category, if you want to collect cameo glass Steins, and you're not going to have a lot in your collection. From what I can see, even some of the people with the largest collections, or really advocate Stein collectors, they have a couple if they're lucky. And so what I started doing is I like cameo glass itself. And since cameo Steins don't come up a lot, if you like cameo glass, which are really cut back in layers, which I think is really interesting, you have to branch out to vases, pokals, other forms other than Steins. Now this is a cameo glass Stein. Oh boy. That's trouble. Let's, hold on. Hit the open.
Hello, Microsoft? Yes. Didn't this happen yesterday?
I'm not selling anything though. Hit to go backwards? Wait a minute. If I could see the down button, let me see.
On the lower right, there's a like
up and that will project it forward. Next one. There you go.
Okay. Now we've got the background and stuff, but I don't want to fool with it. Excuse me?
On the lower end,
And you can also add in some comments about Austrian faience while you're helping me.
or cameo glass.
Yeah, or cameo glass.
Where's the arrow pointer? No, there we go. That one there.
There you go.
Okay. No, it isn't. We can see it this way.
We'll see it this way. That's okay.
Because right from here, it should, this thing should click up. We can see it this way.
Okay. This is, okay, we can hit the lights. Thank you. Thank you. This is an interesting Stein. I actually bought this off of a website, and I saw it and contacted the person who had posted it. It's a cameo glass Stein with the handle broken off. You have to see the handle broken off and no lid. But to get a cameo glass Stein is fairly unusual and fairly hard to get, and so of course I had to buy that. This is a Pokal, and if you notice from the previous picture, it's almost like a Cossack. It's a military, and I think it was Frederick II, but there's no handle on this. This is just a Pokal that I recently acquired. This is a piece, St. George and the Dragon. It's just a beaker, but it's a rather large beaker. It's probably 8.5 inches tall. Really, really well done. And again, you'll see, if you want to collect just cameo glass Steins, it's not good. It's not a big universe. This is another beaker that I bought with a hunting scene. There's actually, if you can see it, it's not a great picture, a dog in the right-hand side. That's a cameo glass Stein, and you see these come up in either blue or pink, and these have come up 2 or 3 times in each color, maybe in the last 15 or 20 years. So they don't come up that often either. And this is rather plain. It's just the leaf on from the trees. This is a Stangen Pokal. It's Madonna and child, and you see the close-up is lousy because I took the picture, but essentially that's an 11.5 to 12-inch size piece. Really well done, first quality. What I learned with some of these cameo pieces are the craftsmen who did them, you can find more than one with the same scene. So when you see one, don't expect this to be, oh wow, this is the only scene that there's going to be, and the craftsman went to a different scene. I've seen this in a goblet that was sold a decade ago, virtually the exact same scene. They sometimes didn't have people in the scenes, they sometimes had cities. And so this is a city scene of a goblet that's probably around 7 inches tall. That's actually a Stein. It is cameo cut. Again, it's a city scene or an architectural place that they sometimes use this subject matter. This is a Pokal. I bought that actually out of England, and it was very, very well done. Woman on horseback, really intricately cut. And it's tough to get these when with a lid. Usually they don't have a lid. Now, having said that, and we'll bounce back and forth, in 1960s and 1970s in Czechoslovakia or Poland, someplace in that region, they started manufacturing these vases. And this is a pair of vases. The hunters are on each side. These vases are cameo vases usually signed by an artist, and usually it's in some Czechoslovakian, Polish-sounding name. You can pretty much identify the name. They're usually signed in the lower right-hand corner. So I actually, before I had many older cameo pieces, I had been collecting this in our house for decoration, and my wife liked them, so I was able to display them in living room, etc. That is the bottom of a cameo glass Stein. A friend of mine had allowed me to use pictures of his cameo glass Stein. This is one of the ones that came up with auction in the last couple years. Very well cameo cut of horses. Really a super Stein. That's the thumb lift of it. That's if you see the detail and the layers that it was cut, that's the lid. That's it from the rear. And that's his rear. This is a piece, and again, I'm going to be switching because I didn't want to put my son through the trouble of organizing it better time-wise. This is a beaker. Actually, I bought this from Ron Fox. I bought this beaker as probably one of the second older pieces that I bought. And I really like this beaker because it was red. And if you see the cameo pieces from 100 years ago or so, you'll see a majority of them seem to be blue, but sometimes they're red. Literally, as the story goes, I'm at the Pittsburgh convention last year, and Les Paul was selling a bunch of books. And I picked up a glass book like I always do, and usually they're in German, and I usually look at the pictures, and if I like a couple pictures, I'll buy the book. So I'm looking at through the pictures. This piece is pictured in this 1971 book, the exact piece. And it's the only piece of cameo glass shown in the entire book. So now I have the book for $5 with the actual piece. Thank you, Les. That was a good deal. This is, again, the 1960s, 1970s vase. This is a golfer. I actually just bought the mate to this. I bought it in blue. It's always pretty much the same style. These vases are probably 21 inches tall, very well cut, and again, not that old. Some people advertise these, for thousands of dollars. They think, and certainly if it was 100 years old, it would be worth thousands of dollars, but they don't go for that. This is a bulbous piece, same thing, different form. Again, 1960s, 70s, with a nice gentleman riding a horse. And horses was a predominant theme, as was Cupids, and as well as on these. This is again the same style. This is an ice bucket with a jockey riding a horse that my wife liked. Thank you, Lori. So that's out. Okay, Metlock Steins. I started collecting Metlock Steins, I'm going to date myself, 3 decades ago. Ron Fox had a couple in his auction, and I looked at them. He had them on display someplace, and I said, I'm going to bid on these in the auction. And like, I think I want to collect these. These are really early Metlock pieces. And so I put in my bids in the auction, and the things went for, I think, over $400 a piece. So I didn't get them. There were 2 of them. I didn't get either one of them. So of course that piqued my interest. This is one of my favorite ones. It's a Stein. It's got an inlaid lid with a cross, which is, and I should know what that stands for, but I don't. Albert probably knows. Color with all the symbols around it. That's a super piece. This is another nice piece, and you'll note that usually it's the same form, but sometimes they have different colored stripings around the bottom, the middle bands, and the top. And so, of course, if you're collecting these, you get the same one with a different color band. Well, you have to have that because the band is green instead of red. Okay, the lid on that one is gut Heil. For the most part, these lids are flat. They're not raised. That's a picture of another lid. And what also I found is that on different pieces, you could get the same two pieces, but they might have different lids. Remember, this is early Metlock. This is probably 1860s in that range. And if you look in the Metlock book, I don't want to say for sure, I didn't look at every page, but none of these are even pictured. That's the number, and the number is 728. And I should remember the number, but you'll see the 3 digits, and that 3-digit number is also similar to early Metlock pieces, which have a 3-digit number stamped. Same kind of size, same type of numbering. So 728 appears there, and you'll see they, out of the, say, 22 or 23 pieces that I have, only 3 or 4 have numbers on them. They all have the same numbers. The rest of them aren't numbered. There's an example of not bands colored changes, but backgrounds changed. And that's a 4F scenery. The one on the left pink, the one on the right green, and then there's a third version. This is one of the few versions I've seen which is like the sepia black color. So that one came in three colors. I've only, just as a little aside, I've only seen one other black colored one, and that was, I was in Stuttgart 20 years ago. A friend of mine had gotten me into a show. He had it in his booth, but it hadn't come out yet. So after I walked the show, I went out back to his booth, and he had this piece up there. I said, oh, I got to have that. He said, I sold it. He didn't know I was interested. I didn't really collect them at the time. And that scene was of the Munich skyline. So I subsequently tracked down the dealer that he sold it to and tried to buy it from the dealer. And because the dealer wanted, I think it was over $1,000, that's the one that escaped my collection. But that one also was in a black sepia colored background. This is an interesting one. This shows up on various Metlock Parian pieces, and the reason why this is important is because it has a date on it, 1862. So it's okay for me to stand up here and say, well, look, it's an early Metlock Stein. It is Parian. It's circa 1860. Most of them have closed hinges. If you know, I guess between 1860 and 1870, the hinges were going to start being opened instead of closed. So most of these have closed hinges when you do see them. But this one actually has the date 1862 on it. It's a shooting fest piece. This is just another typical inlay flat. It has a hat with a seine. This they often have, because they're from that 1860s, 1870s, they have the fancier lids, pewter lids. And this has, if you see on the top, it's got a green body, pink top. There's really no rhyme or reason for them. It's got a pink top, and there's 3 little sections on the top where there's a drinking vessel or a goblet. This is Gambrinus. This is really Gambrinus with a pewter lid and Gambrinus with the Parian inlay lid. Same scene, toasting. This is another Turnfest Stein, pink. Now this body is just a hair different because it's flat. The bottom of it is flat to the when you put it down on the table. So it's a slightly different style, but not that much different. This is a Gooseman in pink, and another Stein auction within the last 6 months had one in green, which I now have, but the green one hadn't come up ever that I've seen. So big deal. It's just a Gooseman, but I have it in a different color. They often did. If you know the early Metlocks, I think it's mold number 328. They have lots of scenes of gnomes and characters out of drinking vessels and steins in merriment, and this is one of those. And that's the top. That top comes again in pink and green. Well, let me just go back. That again has the 3 drinking vessels on it, but on a different body. This is just, if you think about it, in the early 1860s Metlock, these things were more simple. There weren't that many elaborate scenes. This one is my favorite because this has the best lid that I've seen, other than that first one, which is in the super color. It has birds nesting in a nest, and it's relief, and it's really a nice lid. This one I believe to be a Parian 728 Metlock, but this is a relief one, but it has the same body as some of the other Parian pieces, so that's why I attribute it to Metlock Parian, but I can't be 100% sure. I've actually seen two of these, with a relief. I think it's Mozart on it, with a music relief inlay. There's Gambrinus in pink. You saw Gambrinus in green before. That's Gambrinus in pink. That's the lid again. That's the barmaid. That's again has green with the three cups. Again, some of these pewter lids are not the original pewter lids. They were added after the years, but since the Parian ones don't come up that much. There's an interesting one, more or less a drunken guy laying back with a person coming out of a Stein. It's a little tough to see. That has green and blue on it. So they really went with these same colors, really not green and blue, green and pink. Those were their major color things before Metlock really expanded into all different colors. That's the lid. Now, in addition to making Steins, they also made other wares. This is a tobacco jar, also Parian, not marked. And if you look at this carefully, and I didn't take pictures of all the four scenes, these scenes are the same scenes on later Metlock pug pieces. I think it is 528, 529, and 530, number 1530. So essentially, these were the early versions, and because of the scenes, they put them on pug Steins 30 or 40 years later. That's another Villeroy Parian piece with different scenes around a tobacco jar. That's a vase, and it's not marked, but clearly it's a Villeroy and Bach Parian piece, a little more elaborate than the others. Those are the bottoms that I were talking about. One is flat to the ground, while the other has kind of a raise, maybe half an inch to 3/4 of an inch. And that Mozart piece that I was saying is similar to the body on the left, which is why when I compared the two, the bodies are almost exactly the same, is why I put it in the Parian category. That you really can't see, but that's another 728 in there. And there you can see it on the edge. So we've seen three different places. That they put actually on the edge of the bottom of the Stein, 728. Again, big block lettering. That's the Gooseman that just came out of an auction that I purchased. That's the green Gooseman. And that also is unusual because all the other ones have a flat Parian lid except for the one with the bird's nest. And this is the only one I've seen with a relief, more or less raised Parian lid. Okay, that concludes the Metlock Parian pieces. And again, there was an article in Prosit, and somebody was saying, oh, are these Metlock, are they Parian, this and that? And I always meant to write an article saying, yeah, well, I've got like a closet with all these in it. This is why I think it's Metlock, but now I put it out here. Another category that I started collecting, Merkelbach and Wick hand-painted Master Steins. And as some of you know, I like sports Steins, and a lot of these came in the sports motif. They're not in any particular order. The first one is not a sports motif. These are 4-liter Merkelbach and Wick, stamped M&W on the bottom, and most of them, but not all of them, have that steeple lid. It's a very great quality lid, and I assume that there was one color house that made these particular Steins in different scenes and used the same pewtersmith. So that is a non-sports scene with, you'll see a flying unicorn, I think, in the middle. Very well painted. This is same lid. This is a weightlifting. I don't know how this guy's not getting a hernia doing this, but that's what they have. And that's the lid. Very interesting lid. This is a bicycle rider. Same lid. Still 4 liters. These are all 4-liter Steins. Same lid. High wheel bicycle tipping his hat. This is a tennis scene. Now this lid is different than the others. Does not have that, what I call the better quality steeple lid. But it's just people playing a game of tennis. This is same steeple lid, 4 liters, bowling. So if you see, it's not that I've seen multiple of these. I've only seen one of each of these, and they all happen to be different sports. This is one with an eagle on it, on an American flag. Lid is slightly different than the other ones. There's a Merkelbach and Wook. And what's also interesting on these, here's a 5-liter one, that same lid but double-handled, but it's plain. Interesting about these, when you look at the bottom, they have a 4-digit decoration number where the decorator signed a number, and the numbers are different, so they obviously, that's either the designation of the artist or a designation of a number that they made for that particular piece, because they're all hand painted. This is a 4-liter piece with the typical dome lid, but it's still Merkelbach and Wick. Dreslin Porcelain Master Steins. This is one of my favorite topics. Is Ron here? Is Ron Fox here? Okay. This is one of my favorite stories. Let me first, I'll get into it. This is a piece that was sold in the auctions several years ago. This is, I don't own this piece, but this piece has usually they're set on lids. They're not mounted. This one happened to be mounted, so it's one of the few that I've seen that's mounted. Like Royal Vienna Steins, these Steins have different quality painting on them. So this is a higher quality scene painted on it, and more or less colorful decorations. You'll see some of the other ones are not as colorful, but again, this one is mounted so that the lid connects to the handle. And all the other ones do not have the mount. This is, and believe it or not, I used to know who that is, and that there's a big like acorn on the top, and that's the mate. It was a prince and princess or a queen or a king, and I had it written down and I can't find it. So instead of spending 7 hours trying to figure it out, it's a king and a queen or a prince or a princess. These are all 5+ liters in size. They're huge. Now, this is the Stein. These are not as good a quality scene as the other ones. Again, there's difference in quality of scenes. The first one I showed you with the mount is a good quality. The king and queen one are very good quality. This is a slightly lesser quality, but still nice. These have cherubs on it. I actually decided, because I always thought about it since I'm giving this lecture, how many flowers are on that piece. So I pulled up a chair Wednesday night, I put it out on the table, and I decided to count the number of flowers. Okay, instead of having a guess, I was going to have people guess. It's so dark I can't see anybody. There are 80 flowers on the top. And all of these flowers are hand done. Somebody made these and handmade them. And there are approximately 100 flowers on the lower part. So each of these have 180 flowers. You almost never, every one that I've seen that's sold always has some flowers broken off. They're very delicate. They're very thin. So in any case, the story with this particular one is Ron Fox and I are walking. This is 25 years ago. We are walking. We land in London. We land at 6 in the morning. We put our stuff in the hotel because we can't check in, and we go right to Portobello Road. We walk into the first antique shop that we see, and in the first antique shop, we both look in the middle of the room and we see this bottom with top. And I turn to Ron and I say, Ron, if this has a handle on it, this is the mother lode. We both look at each other and we both do this simultaneously to look to see if there was a handle on it. And of course there was a handle on it. Now this presented problems because I had in my pocket just about enough to buy this. But this was the first day of a 10-day trip. And so literally, I land, I go into the first shop, I spend virtually all the cash that I had in 5 minutes. So now we're saying, Ron, how am I going to, I'll go to American Express, I'll do this, I'll do that. We're trying to figure it out. We walk out, we're walking down the street, and Ron runs into a guy that happens to owe him $10,000. And the guy has it in cash. So Ron says, oh yeah, do you have any cash? The guy says, oh yeah, yeah. Okay, boom, boom. Gives Ron the $10,000. I look at him, we're back in business. So now that's the first one. That's the second one. The top of the cherubs on top are all different. And believe it or not, every one that I bought because I liked, and every one happened to have a different scene. There wasn't a double. You know, some of them I almost bought to say, well, I'm going to have a second one, and they turned out to be a different scene. Sorry, Lori. These are about, I should have measured it, probably 15, 16 inches. Wow. You know, they're 5+ liters. They're huge. Okay, here's another one. The green ones, different cherub, one holding up, one doing this. Different cherub. Again, different cherub. Let me just go back. That's another cherub, different size. You see, usually they're courting scenes. A lot of times they're courting scenes. Man and woman sitting under a tree, man and woman laying down. So that's for the green versions. Those are and actually the king and the queen one, I didn't count them, but they actually have less flowers on the top. I was disappointed. They probably have 50 instead of 80 flowers on the top, but they have the same amount on the bottom.
What are the value of these today?
These usually they usually go for between $3,000 and $5,000 in that range, and it depends on. You're never going to get them mint, so it depends on how many flowers are off and if that bothers you. You know, they're really. What I put them in the category of Royal Vienna Steins, and they're really nice ones, and it depends again the quality of the painting. But the Dresden, because they're from Dresden with all the flowers, Dresden also made lamps with all these flowers. They made lots of wares, mirrors, and all types of things. That's what they look in my living room, my dining room. Those are all that I could, that's all of them, and they all fit in there, but I can't buy any more because there's no more room there. And my wife doesn't know that there used to be a little more room, but I snuck one in about 8 months ago. So there was they were spread out a little bit more, and I could squeeze one more in, so. And that concludes it. Again, we did just wooden in general, and I don't know how many people really just collect wood. I've really not, you know, people have wooden steins as part of their collection, but there must be somebody out there that just focuses on wood. I've never met them. So you got the Metlock Parian, you've got the cameo glass steins. We pictured 1, 2, 3 cameo glass steins. That was it. There's not even, you ask the advanced collectors, they don't have a lot. There's 2 or 3, 4 if you're lucky. They're just not around, and so if you like cameo glass, you have to more or less go back to pokals or vases or some other form because you like the carving. And the Merkelbach and Wick, these large master steins, really well done, hand painted. Most of them have these nice lids, and the Dresden porcelain pieces, and they have smaller ones with the floral arrangements on it as well. I focus on the master steins. Just before you ask any questions, after this we're going to have Siggy. Where is he? Yes, he's going to, we kind of changed the roundtable discussions because I needed a PowerPoint presentation, and so I needed this room. So we're not going to do this twice, and I mean, Siggy can do his twice, but I said to everybody who wants to stay, he's doing it on his regimental book, and so he's kind of doing a roundtable. He's going to do a roundtable here for those who are interested in that. A rectangular table. Well, he can pull a chair around, unless he wants to go back to the other room. No. Everybody's here, so. Anybody have any questions? Yes, Rich.
What's a Parian?
Parian is really just a type of, it's like a type of porcelain, but it's like a bisque.
Not quite as fine as porcelain.
No, it's not quite as fine. It's like a bisque, and it's, these are dull.
John?
Yes.
I've had to compare it. I have
One of which I sold you.
I have one that had a full dimension cavalier drinking out of a flute on the lid and inserted in Parian.
But that's 328. That's, if you look, that's listed in the Metlock book. Those, the 328's plain, they're relief. Those are listed and seem to be documented, but the 728s don't seem to be.
Yeah. But it had a typical Parian schema.
Yeah, and the 328 series, if you look at that, Bob Wilson had, I don't know how many different 328s. If you look in the book, there's a lot of 328s, different scenes. So remember, that's probably the same time period as this, 1860s, and that's before Metlock got going on the colorful and the etching, etc. That's what they did. Any other questions? Yes.
Markings at the bottom of the big president?
You know what? I knew somebody was going to ask me that. I didn't turn them over, and I don't recall. And that's an excellent question. But I will go home and turn one or two over and.
But it's interesting, the big president plaque is not really any markings on the back. At the end, there's like 3 digits, and you
Right.
like those. You can tell just by looking at it.
Right.
And they seem to go in a number series, but there's no other markings.
Right. Right. Any other questions? Yes, sir.
John, on the wooden Steins, you mentioned St. Louis Silver Company.
Yes.
And on the Dalvin Krug, I know a lot of them from about 1900 or late 1800s, the medallion on the top with the King Oscar of Sweden.
Yep.
They came from Stevenson, or I think that's exactly what his name is, his shop in Sweden or in Stockholm. Are there any other manufacturers that are repeatedly shown on the wooden Steins?
I'm not familiar with it. Everybody knows the St. Louis because they have them in all different sizes. I've seen the 5 liter, 3 liter, 1 liters and half liters, and they have different versions of lids. The frequent one, like you said, is the coin on the insert. Sometimes they made them, they're a Stein, but they made them for the whole coffee, so the inside comes out. If you see, it's not really functioning as a Stein. There's a removable piece that comes out of the middle. But I haven't seen, from the U.S. standpoint, specific wood manufacturers. I think America's thinking you put your beer or liquid in a pottery or porcelain or ceramic vessel, that you don't do it in wood.
Well, what I guess was thinking about is like Pewee. I have certain houses where the master has a number of people working for him in that house or in that shop. And I was wondering with the wood carving and things like that, if there were specific shops that had a name and then a number of employees that were mastering.
I don't know. I've not heard of that, but that doesn't mean that it
Mostly your wood Steins look like they're hand done.
yeah, my favorite ones are clearly hand done, but somebody could have hand done more than one. Yes.
John, how many in your closet where the Parians are? I've been at his house, so I know. How many sports are depicted on the Parian Steins that you know of? Not this Turner pieces, but on the...
Only Turner pieces. There's no sports on the Parian. No.
There's none with the sports?
No, not that I've seen. I mean, it could be out there, but I didn't see them. I think Metlock, if you look at Metlock pieces, out of all the Metlock pieces, there are only, counting etched, pug, or whatever, and I took the book, went through it, and made a list, and I don't have it in front of me. I think I counted no more than 45, including the rowers, and I don't think I included bowling, though, because bowling is a prominent theme. I don't use bowling. I think of that as a game. But if that's in all the Metlock universe, and I've only seen the Turnfest, the people with the 4F, that insert with 1862 shoots and fets. I've only seen those. Any other questions? Yes.
Are most of those wooden ones 3 feet, like Scandinavian? Puts a lot of Steins out with only 3 feet.
I've seen the pewter ones have 3 feet. There's a lot of pewter or nickel that they make, and they have 3 bald feet.
Yeah.
So I've seen that, but I haven't seen that on the wooden ones. But I didn't really focus that much on the wooden ones. Does anybody here collect like a lot of wooden Steins? Yes, Liz.
Answer that just a little bit. The feet are more common too, the Scandinavian. Most of the German wood does not have the 3 feet on it.
Yeah. I don't remember seeing any feet on the ones that I had, but yes.
I got one wood and one 3 feet.
The probably Scandinavian one.
I think it's newer.
Yeah, I've tried to focus on like 100 years old. Every 10 years, though, with that extra 10 years, it expands the universe. So, yeah, Albert.
No, just a tip for people interested in wooden stein. In Norway, you can go way, way further north than you can ever go in Alaska at all because of the Gulf Stream. I mean, you can go way beyond the Arctic Circle up to the top of the waters on the level. The reason for bringing up the interest in wooden steins, Norwegian museums really show incredible depth from the master artisans, like Samuel Font and those kind of people to the more common folk art type. So just a tip, if you're really interested in the topic, just take a trip to Norway. It's a gorgeous place.
Yeah, and I would expect that they have, and the museum ones. Remember, most of these Steins, the Dresden ones, are probably 1870s and 80s in that range, not really 1890, 1900. And the Parian ones were 1860s, but all the other ones are really 100 years old. And so, usually most of us, when you go the extra 100 years back, you've taken a Stein and now added, it's in the tens and tens of thousands of dollars. Those are the ones that are in museums. Occasionally they come up in an auction, very occasionally, and they have not really so much in Stein auctions, but in like a Christie's or Sotheby's or something, and then they're big money. Any other questions? Okay, we're going to turn it over to Siggy. Thank you.